Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, I walked all over that. So if you didn't know, I live on the coast. I made friends with the coastie, got a little bit of the nose candy. I'm a little bit jittery. It's all good.
I can't believe you mixed up your own intro.
Yeah. Nick, I almost made the joke about you scored a bust, and then I got it from you, but I'm like, wait, no, your boss might actually get you in trouble for that. That joke wouldn't land for you. So I had to make
I don't need that smoke, man.
That's why have you seen that meme where it's like all the different branches, like how they celebrate, and you got the coastie like sniffing the fires of the drugs they're burning?
I've seen him do it.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So Herman, welcome back. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
Yeah, I'm Herman P. Hunter. I'm a author of fantasy fiction. My claim to fame is pretty short novels that are sort of along the lines of pulp, also considered Christian-esque, and that's it. I mean, I'm pretty much unknown. So,
not to this show.
Yes.
All right. And the next part of the introduction to your listeners, I have to tell you how we first found them. We actually met Herman in a candy corn addiction recovery group, but then we decided there was nothing wrong with our desires. So we left and we got some coffee and candy corn, and the rest is history. Dabby, what were you going to say? I can see that look.
Candy corn is best snorted.
Absolutely. Right there. The pixie dust. I actually had somebody when I was in elementary school actually tried that because they thought they were being funny. It was hilarious to watch the sugar go in their nose and then them like almost die because they were idiots.
Yeah, I did. I actually knew a guy who would snort saccharin. This back a long time ago. Packets of saccharin, and at the Denny's, and I don't even know if Denny's exists anymore, but at the Denny's and the little coffee, they'd have coffee. He'd sit there and snackarin, and then he'd go, sweet.
Did anybody give him funny looks when he did it? I imagine, but
we were all in high school. We were all weird. So
Denny's does still exist out here.
Yeah.
And the candy corn look
go ahead.
Was because I just sent JR a video of they made a Thanksgiving dinner flavored candy corn mix.
Wait, what? Were they watching Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory?
Snozzberries taste like snozzberries.
I don't know, but I did send you the video so you could see them, and they're all different colored, and I'm assuming they all taste like a different part of the dinner, but they're all Thanksgiving dinner flavored candy corns. And I was like, candy corn's already bad. Why are you messing with
was that the TikTok video you shared? I'll have to throw that in the show notes for people. Because I haven't had a chance to watch it yet because my phone won't let me. But all right, since this is the spooky season, we're gonna theme our questions appropriately. So Herman, have you ever done the haunted house thing? Be they really haunted houses or like the Carnival Fun Park variety?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of from the Detroit area. We don't really have really haunted houses. They're more like crack houses. But I've done the haunted house experience. It's whatever. I mean, I remember one time me and my wife went through with our friends, and it was like kind of like a double date, and wasn't my wife, but the other girl, reached back to grab her boyfriend's hand, and it wasn't her boyfriend, it was me, and she didn't grab my hand. Okay. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. It was purely by accident. She goes, "Where are you?" And I'm like, I'm not him, and that's not my hand.
Hopefully your wife can kiss it and make it better. We're going to move right on past that drive goal. All right, so Nick, have you ever you need a deep breath? I don't want you to choke on your bourbon.
No, it's not bourbon night because the headaches are getting kind of dumb.
So have you ever done the haunted house stuff, Nick?
I have. I've not only gone and frequented haunted houses. I was in one I was a werewolf. I was about 8. No, I was about 8 years old. We were living in Missouri, and where I lived, because it was out in the country, so it was about the next property over was a church. Why? And they turned the church into a haunted house. So not only did I get to be an abomination against God, but I got to be an abomination against God in a church, and I thought that was awesome.
Okay. So I'm going to guess Stabby has more intricate answers. So I'm going to throw mine in. I have been to like the carnival-y types. I don't believe in ghosts, so obviously I've never been to a real haunted house, real as in quotes. But I've been to like the crazy carnival, like hayride type deals during the season. And the jump scares are so predictable that it's like kind of boring. Although anybody that reads a lot, you can start to predict when things are going to happen anyway. So it's hard to surprise me on just about any story. And haunted houses are basically stories too. So I can almost count down to when this jump scare is going to happen, which also makes the people, if you do that out loud, by the way, that makes the people in the little hayride with you upset because you ruined the moment for them. So if you can do that, mouth shut. Just saying. You'll thank me later because you won't get the upset boyfriends who didn't get to cuddle their girl. I'm just saying. All right, Stabby.
All right. So I've done both. I've been to a real haunted house, and I actually created a real haunted house somehow by I made up a story and it got into everybody's head, and now it's become an attraction in Las Vegas. It's quite wild. I've haunted my own house, and I used to work for Circus with MGM Mirage in Las Vegas, and my first day of work was the first day of Fright Dome. So it is an entire theme park that they basically shut all the lights down, and you ride the rides in the dark, and there's several haunted houses throughout it that you can wander through. Randomly, the evil clowns will jump out at you and everything. So my first day, I was 18 years old, and my first day of work in any casino in Las Vegas was in Fright Dome, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, I've haunted my own house. I've accidentally started a trend of going to this random abandoned house in Vegas that everybody believes is the unaliving central of a beekeeper. And people to this day still are like, you can hear the bees. And I'm like, yeah, you can hear the bees. I made that whole thing up, and it's become a thing for teenagers to do in Las Vegas. So
nice.
And I get started to see the Winchester Mystery House this weekend. I'm super excited. There's another haunted house.
I went to that one when we drove out to California a long time ago. That is a bizarre place.
Is that the one with all the doors? The woman went crazy when her husband died?
Yeah. It has hallways that go off and dead end. It has doors that go off into nowhere. Windows that look into other rooms but don't look out. The story is that when her husband died, some medium said that she needed to keep building the house and creating the house in a more bizarre fashion to keep the spirits from finding her. The spirits of all the people who have been killed by her husband's guns from finding her and taking their revenge. So as long as she lived, she kept building that house and doing all these weird things, like stairs that went up to the ceiling. It just weird stuff. So, and it's fun to go through, but it's, it itself is like a haunted house in that you're afraid you may get trapped in there and not be able to get out.
My sister said there's 2 different tours. There's the regular tour that shows you all the rooms, the windows, everything like that. But there's a secondary tour that you can also purchase that actually takes you through several of the ghosts that haunt the house. And I'm like, dude, I'll do both. I'll take both tours.
Which tour lets you shoot one of the original Winchesters?
That would be cool.
Nick, I can see you might need a moment. You need to go to your bunk real quick. Yeah, he's getting a little excited about shooting those windshield. That would be kind of a cool tour. I'd actually pay for that part of it.
There's probably a side attraction down the road that does that.
Some guy with three teeth left, and his name's Bubba.
So actually,
that's Bay Area, California. So his name's probably Chad or Virgo or something like that.
there's actually another attraction down the street that if we have time, I would like to go and see it. But it's a pumpkin patch and it's dinosaur themed. So you'll be walking through the pumpkin patch and the corn maze, and there will be random raptors and T-Rexes, and I thought that seemed kind of cool too.
Nice. All right, so the next spooky season question. So ghost stories, are they your thing? Do you believe in ghosts? Did you enjoy those as a kid?
Yeah, I did. I believe in ghosts. I love ghost stories, and I am a massive scary movie fan. So, yes. Many times, yes.
Stabby, write his name down. We should start a secondary list like we have our frequent flyers. We should do one of our guests that are horror fans. So we have the people to go to when we want to indulge your horror theme stuff. You get to go on our super secret "we told everybody" list. I'm not good at this secret thing. Maybe that's why they never gave me, top secret clearance, Nick.
So then in that case, we have Herman and we have Pittman and me and Nick.
And Pittman likes good bourbon, so I mean that's a double win for him. How do you feel about bourbon, Herman?
I got sick on bourbon and whiskey one too many times, so I'm not a bourbon fan. I'm more of a beer fan. Beer and Spanish brandy, believe it or not, and rum, because I smoke cigars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's perfect combo. All right, so what about you, Nick? First off, do you believe in ghosts? And then, thoughts on ghost stories and the like. It's kind of a vague question.
Yeah, I believe in ghosts. I'm a big believer in like supernatural things. And when it comes to ghost stories, those were always around the campfire when we were out camping, or when we were up at my grandfather's place. He had some countryside land, and he would do like fire pits and stuff. And so you could sit there and listen to old granddaddy tell you about the guy with the hook for a hand and caught a car once, like those urban legends that are now movies, So yeah, I love the ghost stories. I love that nostalgia of being scared as a child, but like still feeling kind of safe, because it's like in the back of your head is like, is it a story? Did it really happen? But Grandpa's a military guy, so of course he started every ghost story with "no shit, there I was," and yeah. So
I'm picturing. Have you seen the movie Major Payne?
Oh yeah.
When he's telling the little engine that could, but Charlie couldn't run because Charlie didn't have no legs. I'm picturing your grandfather doing that bit.
Like, I can't feel my legs. And it's like, well, you ain't got no legs, Charlie. They blown off.
We ought to do a movie review just because we tout the fact that we're veterans and we go a little nuts on that stuff. We ought to do a movie review with Major Payne.
Oh, I got a list of military themed movies we should be doing reviews on. But
all right, let's put that together. And if you, dear listener, are listening and you've got movies in that vein, then that you think we should do. What's that? Was it a Bridge Too Far, where the Germans try to get them to surrender and the Brits are like, "Oh, we don't have enough people to take you prisoner." Yeah. Like that kind of ballsy scene. Like, I like those kind of movies.
Yeah.
Plus, it's fun to laugh at the British accents and then remember that we kicked them out of our harbor. All right. So, Stabby, I know you've got some stuff to say on ghosts too, so I'm going to keep letting you answer last if you notice this theme. So first off, obviously, we've talked about this a lot. I do not believe in ghosts. Much like the people I would like to believe, but I've never seen. So, I'm going to have to see something to believe it. I did like scary stories as a kid. So I read the Goosebumps and the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and all that. And like Nick, when we'd go Boy Scout camping, sitting around the campfire, there's just something fun about trying to scare each other, right, around the campfire. I think there's a primal need in us to be afraid, because it keeps you alive, right? Like, that's why anybody that comes and tries to tell you a war story, be that from an actual war or a fight or whatever, and they tell you they weren't afraid, if they're not a sociopath, they're lying to you, because that's just natural human reaction. So having said that, I don't believe, but I do enjoy a good scary story. With that, Stabby, Lay it on us. Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters?
Absolutely. Do you get it?
No, I love scary stories. I love I'm kind of a little bit of an adrenaline junkie when it comes to that type of stuff. Like the Strangers freaked me out because those were like real people and they, yeah.
Is that the
But
one
like
Liv Tyler? You talking the movie? Yeah.
Yeah. That messes with me, especially since I live up in the mountains, but because you were home. But when it comes to like ghosts and stuff, I definitely believe in that stuff. But I also like to use it to my advantage. So I told you guys that I made up the ghost story in Vegas, but I also haunted my own house when I was living in Illinois. Apparently the neighborhood kids believed that my house was haunted. They didn't know that we had moved into the house, and they kept playing Peeping Tom through my window before I got curtains, and I had caught them one day, and where my stairs were, it was perfect. So I ran back upstairs. I put on my wedding dress. I painted my face white. And I came down the stairs very slowly, walked past the window, never looked at them, just walked past the window into the kitchen, and then turned around and walked right back past. And once a week for at least a month, I would catch them and I would go put on my wedding dress and I would paint my face and I'd come and I'd walk through the house and I'd walk right back past. And they were convinced that the house was haunted. And then one day I was under the windowsill and I saw their shadows come up and I popped up right in their face and it was hilarious. Their moms came over and they were like, Marissa, did you? And I'm like, yes, I did. While I'm standing there in my wedding dress. And it was so much fun. So yeah, I believe in it, but also it's really fun to be your own ghost.
Okay. Have you actually done any real ghost hunting? I used to watch the shows and they get so boring. It was like bad telenovela acting. Like, come on, buddy. If you're that out of breath, like hit a treadmill, all right? Come on.
So when it comes to that, like in Las Vegas, because that's where I grew up, they will let you go into the hotel rooms where celebrities have passed. They'll tell you about them. I got to stay overnight in the Beatles suite at the Sahara, and they didn't let me see the tunnel for Bugsy Siegel, but we all knew it was there. And so they have ghost tours in Las Vegas if you know the right people to talk to.
No, I'm talking about like the people that do the quasi-scientific investigating stuff.
That's what I'm talking about. Because Zach Bagans, the Ghost Adventurers, are actually from Las Vegas. And they're the ones that informed everybody that you can go and stay in these rooms and do your own ghost hunting. And like I said, I got to stay in the Beatles room at the Sahara.
Nice. So what about you, Herman? Did you ever go chasing ghosts on your own?
God, no.
Fair enough. All right. So everyone else has answered this question, but since you have not been on the previous spooky season for this year, what's your favorite Halloween candy?
Yes. So I like most of them, but if I had to pick one, it would probably be was it a 100 grand bar with the caramel and the
You only seem to find them around Halloween time. It's so weird.
Yeah, I love those things. They're crack.
Yeah, they're in that
crack.
Hershey bunch.
Yeah, big Hershey bunch. You know, you pick out those, you give the kids all the stuff nobody wants. So, and anything
Your
but
hands
black
off my 100
licorice.
grand. Oh, black licorice. My dad likes that, and I think there's some deep-rooted childhood trauma there.
Yeah,
my
my son likes it, and I'm beginning to think I need to disown him.
He may just be a big Jägermeister fan. I don't know.
How do you feel about Red Vines versus Twizzlers? I'm just saying, pick a side.
Twizzlers.
Twizzlers.
Yeah,
I think.
I tried Red Vines, and they just I'd rather eat plastic. It probably tastes better.
Take that, Jana.
Yeah. We're gonna get angry. We'll get sternly worded letters, and she'll give us the disapproving mother look. But
no, she'll just send us baked goods, but she only used like half the ingredients, so it's gonna taste off. You know, all the delicious stuff she sends us.
Chocolate concrete cookie.
Our Christmas present boxes that usually have the fudges in them is gonna be nothing but red vines.
All right, Nick, I dropped the link for you. Can you pull up the movie trailer? So we're obviously here to talk about The Craft. So while Nick is pulling up the link, Stabby, can you tell us why you picked this movie as one of your movies to review for this year?
After you mute Nick.
Crap.
There we go.
How can you not do spooky season without The Craft? I mean, it's got it all. It's got your main female leads. It's got your magic. It's got, people going crazy. It's got witches. There's like snakes and spiders, and it was the perfection of what could go wrong with witchcraft.
Absolutely. That's a good reason. So Nick is going to show us the movie trailer real quick, but why don't we do hit play. Well, you know what? Let's do the commercial first, and then we'll jump into this. So that way we don't have to interrupt our discussion on the movie, because it was a good one. All right. So we're going to air that beautiful bean footage, and then we'll be right back.
When a strange symbol is found at a burned-down historical site, Houston arson investigator Emmy Aninzo goes to work. As mysterious and inexplicably hot fires break out across the drought-ravaged city, she finds herself digging through the ashes of history. It's a race against time to track down the serial arsonist and explain the seemingly impossible heat of the fires. As strange evidence begins to pile up, Emmy wonders if the arsonist is insane, or even worse, possessed. Can Emmy and her colleagues find and stop him before the entire city burns? Parsec award-winning author Paul E. Cooley wraps ancient mythology around an eerie contemporary tale that will leave you burning for more. Garber's Inferno, a free podcast novel available from shadowpublications.com and iTunes. Some mysteries shouldn't be solved.
I like that tagline. So first, we're going to give you the information. So we're obviously talking about the movie The Craft. It was directed by Andrew Fleming. It was a budget cost of $15 million. It said box office on the stats. I'm guessing that means how much it earned was $55.6 million. I would say that's a good return. It's 101 minutes long, was released on May 3rd, 1996, and distributed by Columbia Pictures. We couldn't find ad copy. It's the older the movie, the harder it is to find whatever the ad copy was. Sometimes Stabby can find it for us. But while she looks, Nick, do you want to play that movie trailer for us?
You got it.
To the other kids at St. Bernard Academy, they were the girls who didn't belong.
Whatever you do, stay away from them.
Why?
They're witches.
But after years of being on the outside,
Why'd you lie about me?
I don't want to go out with you again. Please stop begging. It's pathetic.
4 girls are about to discover the dark side.
You ever heard of invoking the spirit? Black magic. We can make things happen. I mean, this is it. This is real.
Columbia Pictures welcomes you to the witching hour.
Check it out. Her spell is working. Sit.
How can you say I go about things the wrong way? I am human and I need love, just like everybody else.
The Craft.
girls watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
So first, that "We Are the Weirdos" line, we've all used that since that movie came out. We are the weirdos they warned you about. The music was like going back in time for me when you got all that music. But the ad copy for this, because we're going to get into some of the nostalgia strip stuff later, but the ad copy is: a newcomer to a Catholic prep high school falls in with a trio of outcast teenage girls who practice witchcraft, and they all soon conjure up various spells and curses against those who anger them. Thank you, Stabby, for finding it. First, would the movie trailer make you want to watch it?
Yeah, because I saw the movie trailer. That's 1996. That was my senior year of high school, so it was definitely geared towards my my demographic. So watching that, and I was like, "Oh wow, Nev Campbell's in it. In Perusa Balk's in it. In everybody else whose name I can't remember. Smoking hot as a young 17-year-old boy. I'm like, in."
Robin Tooney, Rachel True, Christine Taylor.
Yeah. And it was like witchcraft and stuff. I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I actually watched this one when it came out too, so obviously the trailer worked. But this was I think that the trailer did enough to give you a little bit of everything, but not ruin everything, like not ruin the story either. It's sometimes the trailers, like, that was the only cool stuff in the movie was what they put in the trailer. This was
I
not
loved how at the and then the end of the trailer is when they hit you with the comedy.
Yeah.
With the "We Are the Weird Ones, Mister," and I was like, oh, that's funny because it was such a teenage thing to say. So that, like, it resonated with me as a teenage person, boy, feeling like a little girl sometimes. I don't know, but yeah, I love the trailer. When it came out, they, them.
All right, so Herman, what about you? Did this trailer do it for you?
Yeah, actually, I don't think I saw it at the actual theater. I might have caught it later, based on the trailer. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. I think the thing was it was different than every other movie that came out around that time, where it was primarily some sort of serial killer, something along those lines. So it gave you a little bit something different than what was normally out there, in my opinion. And the women weren't exactly hard on the eyes, so.
I mean, okay. So I'm going to share the movie poster, because that we can actually find, because people collect these because this was such a cult classic. I don't know if it was that popular right away or it became a cult classic later, but it definitely is.
There's a huge goth fetish now, and I think it originated with The Craft.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I think that was when goth was pretty much at its height, because I think around that time also had Interview with a Vampire coming out. I can't remember exactly when that was. And so that whole Anne Rice thing. So that was like when it was, I believe that's when it was peaking. It was a long time ago for me.
So this is the movie poster. I found two versions. We've got this one.
That's
just kind of grainy. And then this is one without the extras, but they cleaned it up. But that's basically the image. I think it works.
Both of them do, and it shows that it was like they're controlling nature, which is what witches do. So from a graphic design standpoint, it tracks, and it works.
I was there for it. It worked for me. So yeah. What about everybody else? So did it? Do you think the movie poster did its job, Herman?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's simple. It kind of gets right to the point without going over the top. And of course, the people that they had there sort of symbolized what they were, symbolized with the theme of the movie. So I mean, it's a perfect example of less is more.
Absolutely. Stabby, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't actually see the trailer until I was older. I came across The Craft the same night that I came across Scream, actually. And it worked out in my favor because Nev Campbell and Skeet Ulrich are in both movies. I went up to the local video time that was around the corner from my house. I rented both VHSs based on their cover art on the front of the VHS tapes. And I was like, these both look awesome, and it's going to drive my mom nuts. And it did, but it worked in my favor because it had two amazing actors in both of the movies. And I was like, yep.
So speaking of actors, some of the bit characters were also bit characters in League. One of the lawyer type movies. Was it Legally Blonde? I think. A lot of the actors. I remember when we watched it. I remember thinking some of the secondary actors in the high school, like I'd seen them in other things. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Well, Christine Taylor played Marcia Brady on the Brady Bunch remake.
Okay,
and she was also in Zoolander too.
The dad, I think he might have been the dad from Home Alone, but he looked familiar.
No, he's not the dad from Home Alone. Oh my God, he is in so many movies, but I can't.
This is one of those movies where you'll watch it and you'll be like, "Oh, I recognize them." I might not know who they are, but I recognize them.
Yeah, Cliff the Young, well-established actor.
The Hunger, Glory.
Oh, that's a good one. Glory.
Glory's a good movie.
Let's see what else. The Hunt.
That's a good one.
Alias.
Alias, Threshold, Young and the Restless. I mean, like, this dude is all over the place as far as TV and movies.
Yep.
A good actor, though.
All right, so
and he doesn't seem to age. They just give him white hair. He needs to be older.
No, you know what you want to do is you want to reverse age like Elon Musk did, where he went from like in his 20s, he was balding and now he's got more hair. It's just not fair. I need to get rich enough to buy his hair plugs. But okay, so speaking of aging, so obviously some of the special effects, because for the most part, they did practical effects. But like when you watch it in HD on a modern TV, when she does the little glamour where she changes her hair color, very noticeable. I don't remember it being as bad when you watched it back then, but now that we've got higher definition cameras, you catch it.
Yeah, we're watching things in 4K, man. It's like,
well, that and we're also
ruins the magic.
We know, we're also used to seeing basically computer graphics.
Yes,
CGI. So you know all the tricks. You know what you're looking for.
But I mean, other than that, I don't remember there being really any other effects that felt like. Well, maybe when her hand turned to snakes. Those were the only two times I remember thinking the effects dated. Everything else, they did it in such a way that kind of made it timeless as far as effects go, which I liked. But it was definitely nostalgia when you're looking at the fashion, when you're looking at the home phone that's got like the big clunky, but it's cordless, house phones. Everyone looks so scrawny. McDonald's hadn't ruined America yet.
They're working on it.
Yeah, but it was definitely like it was a walk down memory lane because I was in high school when this was supposedly set in a high school. So did that do
close enough? They were all in their early 20s.
Beyond high school.
Well, no, I'm talking about this was set in a high school while we were watching it while we were in high school.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fun to walk. Like obviously I've watched this movie several times, but it's fun to go down memory lane. And I noticed things this time because we were watching it to do the review that I didn't catch, like some of the symbolism and stuff that was in this movie. And I don't know if that was accidentally on purpose or on purpose or just sort of I'm looking for stuff. It's kind of hard to tell, but it was really fun to watch it like from a more mature-ish perspective. So did any of you guys notice any of the themes that they had going on in this movie?
Oh, there's a lot of them. They go into classic witchcraft themes about actually what magic is supposed to be used for. It's supposed to be for the betterment of mankind or betterment of society or your community. And they tell you, like, anything you throw out there is going to come back to you tenfold. That was probably one of the main premises of the magic system of that movie, because once they started doing the magic that had a negative impact on people, this stuff started coming back. Like Nev Campbell's scars started coming back. That one girl's hair started falling out. You know, when the god said, "Hey, you're misusing the stuff I gave you. You know, you got your revenge and you took it too far. Not cool. Now I got to smite you."
I don't know if it was smiting so much as it was that balance. You know, nature is beautiful and cruel. You know, all that they talked about.
That could be a smiting.
They basically what they wanted is they wanted to just kind of poke them. They wanted to kind of poke all the people who've been giving them a hard time, and the reality was that it was more than just poking. It went beyond what they had hoped for, and they started feeling. Of course, they, you know, 3 of them had a conscience, but the fourth was, you know, kind of didn't. And the end result was it was they were seeing the impact of the things that they had done and started feeling bad, and didn't know how to stop it. So
yeah,
it's you know,
Nancy
having
was
power.
broken.
It's
She was
it's
a broken
having
person.
power. It's having power and not being having power and not appreciating what happens when you use it.
I think some of it is like they were at some level they were childish with how they were using it because they threw the rock in the pond, but they didn't count on the ripples, right? Like I think that's what got them, and so, and then when they realize it, they're like, whoa, you know, no matter how bad they were, it wasn't worth whatever. One of the things I like though is when they were when they were talking about, was it Manoa? However you say that.
Yeah, I think it's called. I actually looked it up. It's called Manon, but they call it Manoa or something like that. I just
Mano.
Yeah. So,
but when they're talking about him and they're like, so that's like God, and she's like, no, like that's if God and the devil were playing, they're the field, and I'm like, so you're basically saying God isn't God, but this is God. You're not answering the question. You're dancing in circles. Exactly. And I remember watching that like logic loop that said a lot by saying nothing. It's like, you know, when people want to sound smart, they say things, and I got that vibe.
Logic.
Right, but it worked because, you know, if you got a college professor doing that, you're like, oh, you pretentious, whatever. When it's a high school girl or a high school boy doing it, you're like, oh, look at you trying to be a grown up. So it hits differently, and I think, you know, whether they meant it that way or not, watching it, you know, as an adult, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, you know, watching them try to figure out the world. But they got into the symbolism of what you know, creation, where it came from, like, without being offensive to any of the major religions, which I thought was kind of cool. Before they had check boxes, they just, you know, told a good story and they let that be the thing that drove it. And the end result was you're kind of nice to everybody or insulted everybody equally, but there was no, you know, playing favorites with one side or the other. You know, it's the glory days, I guess. Now let me shake my fist at the sky. So the other thing that I noticed, just because I've got kids in high school, is when they're sitting in class, they've got like the pencil, because it opens up with, was it Sarah? Was that her name? The blonde?
Yeah, Sarah Bailey.
Yeah.
Robin Tunney.
Yeah, she's like spinning the pencil on her desk with magic.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, I'm like, oh yeah, notebooks and number 2 pencils and pens, like when we were in school, because the kids nowadays, everything's on computers and they got little laptops on their desk, and it was like, huh. They didn't have any computers. I remember thinking that looked so out of place.
Them and those stupid desks where you had
oh yeah. I hated those desks. No matter, like, they were never comfortable. I think they were intentionally designed to be uncomfortable, like instead of like the opposite.
They were really good for cracking your back though.
Yeah. It'll make the kids pay attention. Yeah, no, it's only going to piss them off. No wonder they don't learn. Anyways.
Speaking of nostalgia, one of the things, like, we're going to be jumping all around the plot because we're not just going to summarize it. Watch the movie. We'll throw the links in how you can watch it. But one of the things that I thought, speaking of nostalgia that didn't age, when the dark-haired girl that went a little nuts, I can't remember her name.
Well, the Nancy Downs.
Nancy.
Yeah. But that was Feruza Balk. Is her name?
So when she kills her mom's boyfriend, or does she? I don't know. It's kind of left up in the air whether she killed him or not. but the implication leans towards yes. But when he dies and they get the life insurance policy as their big payday, and they're like, he had $175,000, and they're acting like they just won the mega trillions. And I'm like, oh,
that was big money in 1996.
Because nowadays I'm like, okay, so maybe you can pay your property taxes with that at this day and age.
Yeah, I mean that was if I remember correctly, that's in California. You couldn't buy an outhouse back then for $100 and some thousand.
Yeah, it's in California. And so it's just because they were supposed to be in LA, and she had come down from San Francisco.
Yeah.
I know in that time when my parents bought their house in San Diego, it was over $200,000.
And and you watch the properties that they supposedly, I'm like, what the hell are they doing and where are they selling the drugs? Because man, they were all living in mansions.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean that's typical in most movies. They have these, these poor working moms. They're living in these huge houses that I couldn't frickin' afford. So that's just the Hollywood thing.
Yeah. So
it's a trope.
Yeah. They've done that to like Friends and some of the other iconic series as well. Like there's no way they afforded that on what they were.
Chandler could have. Chandler could definitely afford both of those apartments based on what he did.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of the way they did the rituals? Like the way they
pretty good.
Magic?
I thought it was pretty good. And I did a little bit of research on it. It was fairly close, although according to the stuff that I read, it wasn't just 4; it had to be 5. So because
the 5 points to the star,
5 points to some star or something like that, and it's the different elements in the spirit. So, but they probably pared it down because they didn't want to put another actress on the payroll.
Budget.
Or they really didn't want.
What was that, Stabby? We couldn't hear you. You're muted.
I was just talking through Nick's mic because he still had his on. I was saying, or they just really didn't want to conjure something. There's quite a few shows that do that. Like some of the movies based on the Ouija board. If you actually look at it, it's missing letters or numbers because they don't actually want to try to like accidentally conjure something. So they'll purposely leave
that stuff is real. I think that's an urban legend.
Yes.
I
think I've seen enough weird things in my life. I think if I've seen, I think I've seen enough weird things in my life to have a little bit more caution when it comes to that type of stuff. Because it's all fun and games until a knife comes out of the knife block and there's nobody in the kitchen.
Okay. I like the way they did the rituals. It sticks with kind of the classic tropes of the rituals, the circle, the cardinal directions, the 4 elements, and all of that. Like that worked for me. I thought it was pretty consistent. It didn't go into some, gibberish, faux Latin, whatever. They just spoke plain language, which I thought was kind of cool. What did you guys think of the magic shop where they the witch store, whatever it was?
I thought that was done pretty well.
Yeah, it felt alien, because you have, the caretaker of the shop is foreign, and so they have their foreign ways or whatever.
She gave you very gypsy vibes.
The shop
very gypsy vibes, like probably Romania.
The shopkeeper was easy on the eyes.
Also, yeah, like Herman said, like easy on the eyes. She was very attractive, older.
Mature.
So it was like mature. You're like, maybe I am into older women. I don't know.
Crouching tiger, hidden cougar.
I liked that when the girls, obviously they were bad influence because 2 of them came from well-off families. The other one's probably on scholarship to this Catholic school. But they were just stealing because they 5-finger discount, which is an expression I haven't heard in forever. The shop owner knew what they were doing, and she was like, "Yeah, are you gonna be like your friends, or are you gonna pay?" Which I thought was kind of cool, because nowadays
called them out on it.
But she didn't call the cops. She let them keep coming back. So it was a weird sort of detente they had going on where she knew and they knew, but they had to pretend they didn't know that she knew, right? Like it was
like a game. It was like a game that she.
I know that you know that I know that you know.
Something about a Sicilian and land war in Russia. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know that I know you, and you know that I know you, and you know you, and now Michelle knows. You know, it's that scene from Dodgeball,
right? If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I'm sorry.
By the way, my kid plays collegiate dodgeball. So
wait, that's a thing?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's a thing.
Oh man, I'm stoked. I'm going back to college.
Dude, my elementary school totally prepared me for this.
He's like showing me coverage of his thing that they had on like local access TV, and I'm like sitting there going, and they're talking about, oh yeah, because I live in Michigan. Yeah, we played against Michigan State University and U of. I'm like, really. So, but yeah, and then all the quotes came out of Dodgeball. Came out of the Dodgeball movie. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
That is awesome.
Dive, dodge, ditch, and dodge.
Yeah. Dodge.
So Scabby is finding the things and throwing them in the show notes, and I'm going to read them for her. So while researching the craft, Feruza Balk, which is the one who played Nancy Downs, became familiar with Panpipe's magical marketplace in Hollywood. That's a mouthful. Eventually buying the store and continuing to operate it until 2001. That's kind of cool. Although Manon is a male deity in the film, the name Manon is common French woman's name. The connection of this name to any deity or spirit is made up by the filmmakers. There you go.
Yeah, I did a little bit of reading up on it. In a lot of these Wiccan, I guess, flavors, they typically worship like two entities. There's a female goddess and a male god, and I forget what the female goddess is, but it has something to do with fertility. But the male god is a horned god. So, but that's about as far as I got. And in actuality, Wicca is a fairly new religion, which was sort of formed out of England. And I forget what the guy's name, but he was a contemporary of who's that one famous magician back in the early 20th century.
You hear about Houdini?
No, not Houdini. The guy who's bald. And now I'm having a brain fart on. But anyways, there was a whole sort of native renaissance of the ancient sort of
so there's
Celtic ways of a lot of the old religion.
Neo-pagans. They call themselves pagans a lot of times.
Yeah.
But since the Romans did a pretty dang good job of like eradicating all that history, they're just guessing, and more power to them. I'm not, but to pretend that we know, I think the Vikings are about the only of the ancient. Well, that and the Romans and the Greeks are really the only pantheons where there's actually enough written stuff left that you could actually like articulate it. Because in the pagan times, like in Wiccan, whatever you want to call it, like each of the tribe would even have their own set of deities, different than the tribe that lived 3 streets down.
Yeah.
So
you have different sects going on there. Yeah.
You said Thurston and Aleister Crowley. What's that?
Aleister Crowley. He was a contemporary of Aleister Crowley.
Okay.
Aleister Crowley, but I can't remember.
Stabby does research.
Yeah, but so I like the way they did the rituals. It felt like they paid enough homage to like the idea of witchcraft. It didn't really do anything new, but it didn't go against the kind of standard tropes, which is kind of what you want to do in a movie that's just going to be a one-off, right? Like you're not trying to build a universe that you're going to tell a dozen stories in. So the less you focus on that, the more you can focus on the adventure part, right? The horror part.
And that was actually one of the positives of the movies. It was self-contained, and there was really no want or desire to go beyond the first movie because there's really nothing else left to say. And so you could like kind of show everything and then wrap it up and just leave it as is. And you didn't have to take it beyond like what they're doing nowadays, taking it beyond its shelf life. They did come out with a follow-up, which is called I think The Legacy, which I think went direct to video, and I don't think it was that good. I saw bits and pieces of it, and I was like, so that was that. I think that's one of the good things about the movie. It didn't try and go beyond what it was good at.
Yeah. So speaking of what it was good at, so one of the things I did notice, we've talked a little bit about the effects. First off, they did not practice fire safety, and we all know that Smokey the Bear told us only we could prevent forest fires, because when they walked into that house party and they go into one of the random empty rooms and they got a fire burning in the fireplace. Hello. They want to burn the house down? Anyway, one of the things I did like is how they kept it so like physical effects that didn't require a lot of technology, so a lot of it aged. But the one thing I did notice is that end battle with Nancy and Sarah in the bedroom, that table got knocked over a couple times and the stuff flew off of it a couple times. Like they kept recycling that effect, which I remember chuckling. I'm like, 1, okay, 2, 3. I guess maybe Manon had some OCD going on.
Well, maybe Manon had a tight budget and a shooting schedule.
Yeah,
I think it's the tight budget.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we're making jokes about a movie that was done at peak technology for when it was filmed. It still was very watchable. We're making jokes, people, but it doesn't mean it's like campy or corny. This was a serious movie, I think.
There were little quirks that if you pay attention, some people have caught, because they do have OCD. Like Sarah's shirt changes from ribbed to not ribbed in the last scene when her and Nancy are fighting. It changes back and forth between being almost a corduroy type material to being just a smooth shirt. When Nancy slams the dresser into Sarah and her clothes are there, all of a sudden the dresser just disappears. And there are little quirks in it that people have noticed, but I think for the time that it was and the amount of money that they had, they did the best that they could in it, and they did a great job.
Well, see, the dresser disappeared because Manon had to reset it for the next time it got thrown around. So.
People have pointed out that Sarah's scars, I'm not going to talk about them too deeply so we don't get this one taken out, but her scars are constantly moving throughout the movie.
That was a big problem in the 90s and the 80s. They did that to Rambo too. I remember I stayed home and watched them all back to back because I was sick. I'm like, oh, those scars moved around his back a lot.
Her scars moved, and then Neve Campbell's characters, her scars would be there in one scene, not there in the next, when she was supposed to still have them all. And then at one point, I guess she had bandages, but she hadn't even had her first treatment yet, and it was like a whole thing.
I think it's because they filmed it out of order, and then they probably made some decisions afterwards, and it.
Well, the thing is it probably went into editing, and somebody who like checks the consistency of the movie probably noticed it, but they're like, you know what? That would cost X number of dollars in the budget. We can't do that, so they just let it in. Nobody will notice it.
Once the bean counters get involved, especially within continuity errors, like they're just like, well.
Yeah, continuity was the word I'm looking for. I'm the writer, and I can't remember half the words that I use. So, but yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to when they they try and keep everything on budget, and certain things they'll just say, oh, nobody's going to notice. Well, no, they notice.
Dude,
but the thing is that the thing about the movie is that it didn't really focus on effects. It focused more on story.
Yes.
And that's something that is sorely lacking in today's movies, where you have people where the story really carries the movie as opposed to the effects.
Yes. So one of the things Stabby found for fun film trivia, one scene they involved using over 3,000 snakes, including pythons, boas, water snakes, garter snakes, rat snakes, a 10-foot Amazon constrictor, and an even rare albino snake. Sorry, people, I got the congestion going on. And the film was mostly shot in chronological order, which is unusual, I think, for movies. So that was notable. And I was wrong, apparently. It was just continuity errors, and they've got no excuses. I will say that one of the things that definitely ages this movie is not the one you'd expect. It's everybody was freaking smoking cigarettes. The cowboy killers were out in force. Like, everybody had them. And nowadays you couldn't do that, but they were like just puffing and puffing away. And I'm like,
Yep.
The good old 90s, we didn't care about lung cancer.
And but yeah, I forget where I was going to go. I had a thought, but I forgot. But it was
I'm a sucker for doing research. So, like, as you guys are having your little in-between discussions about cinematography, I'm over here like, I can pull up that information. Give me 2 seconds.
So one of the things that
I bet one of the reasons why the budget might have been budget constraints is the use of all those snakes and all the different critters, because that probably cost them an arm and a leg and all the insurance that went with it.
I bet.
And the trainers.
Yeah, and the trainers too. Yeah.
Or handlers, the snake
or whatever.
handlers. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that it struck me as funny, and then we're going to actually get into the deeper plot stuff, is they have the scene where Sarah's trying to bind Nancy's powers, and she takes the picture of all 4 of them and she cuts her friend out. And before I realized that was what that scene was, because like I said, I hadn't watched it in a while, and I rewatched it today for this episode. Cutting the picture. That was the original canceling back in the 90s. When you wanted to cancel somebody, you cut them out of your pictures.
That was the OG unfriending.
Right? Before we had Tom, we had scissors.
Yep.
I'm going to take you out of my redial, man.
Oh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that was Rolodex, bro.
All right,
Goodbye.
so in keeping with, we're actually going to air this one before the Practical Magic movie review. But one of the themes we noticed in the craft, in movies about witchcraft, is all the use of candles. It came up again in this movie, where she's at the store and they're talking about the power of those candles. Did that raise any, like, did you guys notice that, or?
Go ahead.
All I'm saying is, if you know anything about the spooky girls, like, there's the girls that do the hot girl summer, and then there's the thick thighs and spooky vibes, and those spooky girls, we have an addiction to candles. I'm just gonna say it out there. Like, I have so many candles specifically for the fall and winter seasons. Like, my Halloween ones all have like spider web decorations and everything. Like, we have a thing for candles. I have candles all over the living room. Some that I never light. Like, they just are there to look pretty. So it does not surprise me that in witch movies, in spooky movies in general, that candles are always just like a focal point at one point or another.
You can't light that candle. That candle's not meant to be lit. Do you know how much that candle costs?
I actually have candles too, but for different reasons. They actually taught me when I was at the inpatient at Walter Reed when I first got back that scents can trigger memories. So if you have like PTSD or traumatic flashbacks and stuff, certain scents can like pull you out of the moment. So I'm always burning lavender or vanilla candles. Sometimes Yankee candles will have ones that make you hungry. I would avoid those if you're trying to diet. I learned that the hard way, people. But I don't get candles I can't burn for the smell factor.
So my spring and summer is a Yankee candle. It's lavender and lemon.
Okay.
And I freaking love that smell throughout the whole house. But the winter comes, and the one that I currently have burning is bourbon and pumpkin.
Ooh, that sounds good.
And there's something about that smell together. It doesn't smell like pumpkin spice. We all know how I feel about that. But there's something about the bourbon and the pumpkin together. It's the perfect combination. And I found it randomly at Target. Ooh, look, candles. But
I actually always go by the candle aisle, and at a minimum, I sniff them because you got to know what they smell like. But I whenever they're on sale, I'm buying them. No question. I like the seasonal ones.
I did find a place that sells the black flame candle.
Nice.
Black
From Hocus
flame.
Pocus?
Yes. And I want one, but there's, one of those V card holding members that lives in my house still. So I will not transit.
That's the funny part of the second movie when they asked what the little girl's like, "Mommy, what's a V card?" Because obviously they say the word, but and she's like, "Oh, that's someone who lights a candle." And it was such a funny tie back, but it was like such a mom thing. It was just like hilarious. All right, so one of the things that I kept wrestling with or thinking about as I was watching this movie, like, so you have the three, Nancy, Bonnie, and what was the other girl's name?
Nancy, Bonnie, Rochelle, and Sarah.
Rochelle. They were obviously doing their own little, incomplete coven, and they said, "Oh, we need a fourth," right? But nothing they did worked. But they totally believed. They had the books. They did the rituals. Then Sarah comes, and suddenly they could all do these power things. Was it because she was the only one power and she was sharing it, or they didn't have their power until she was there to complete the quorum? What did you guys think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think she was kind of the key to it, but so it, like, unlocked the door. But until they had their quote complete circle, that everything that they did was sort of like unbalanced and wasn't and wouldn't go through. That's my thought.
Okay, I kind of got the impression.
Go ahead.
I got the impression she was the one with real magic, and by starting a coven, she had innate magic, and they had magic through the fact of a coven. Because once the coven split and she was going to leave at the end, you notice their power disappears.
Yeah, but the thing is that Nancy Downs was the one who ended up getting the majority of the power very early on, after that ritual at the beach, which was, by the way, one of my favorite scenes.
Absolutely, but we'll get into that because she might have bitten off more than she could chew. And they warned her at the magic store, the wise mentor character, the Romanian chick, right? Like, she was like, "Hey, this powerful magic, you got to be ready for that." And they say, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm a grown up," or whatever it was she said. That was foreshadowing.
But Sarah, she showed her magic before.
Yes.
She pulled the practical magic. She had her pencil going without even touching it, the same way that Sandra Bullock's character was stirring her coffee. Her pencil was going when nobody else had magic. So I think she did have a certain amount of magic. And I think what they did on the beach and then her binding everybody else just gave her an exponential amount of more power. And I think the reason she was allowed to keep it was because she respected it more than the others did.
I also think, hers was inherited, because remember the lady said her mom was a witch, and she didn't know, because obviously her mom died in childbirth. So I think that was Nancy lost her magic because it was bound at the end, because she goes crazy. I think at the first I thought, okay, well, maybe she went crazy because she took the god Minot into her, but then Sarah does the same thing and she doesn't go crazy. So then you wonder how much of it was she was just a broken person who was given power, so she got more broken.
Yep.
Well, there's also another side to that. Was Nancy Downs wanted the power, and Sarah Bailey didn't. She was fearful of it. The other wanted it because she wanted that power because she was going to use it to her advantage. The other one was afraid of having it. So I think that's kind of the theme that was going on there.
Yeah, it's that correlation.
She just respect it.
No, that's what I was about to say. It's like Nancy didn't respect the power; she thought it was a plaything, But Sarah was like very feel for it. Like it's kind of like in the military. I know we always go back to that because we're a veteran podcast, but we respect the weapon systems that we employ, and we're a little bit fearful of them because we know what they can do. So Sarah had that same ideology with the powers that she gained and already had, that got amplified because she was part of a coven, but Nancy didn't respect them. And I think that's the big difference between those two characters, is that one respected the powers that they had and the other one just didn't. They viewed it as a plaything, something they could just wield.
Yeah, The gun tool analogy I think works pretty well for it. I think the other two, Rochelle and Bonnie, were almost unformed clay that were whatever Nancy wanted them to be. They didn't seem to have their own autonomy, so they kind of just went around with whoever the strongest leader at the moment was. They were just inherent followers. You kind of felt sorry for them right up into that last battle.
But see, that's the thing, is they even after everything went down, Nancy's in the loony bin, they still showed up to Sarah. They still showed up. And they're like, hey, we're just wondering, do you still have powers? Like, because they don't know what to do with themselves. They're just out here like, we followed Nancy for so long, we don't know what we're supposed to do anymore. But Sarah's still out here, so let's go kind of touch base with Sarah.
I think
but
they missed the power, I think, is part of it. But when that's like, I imagine a good analogy is if someone's played professional sports and then you get sent back to the minor leagues, like after you've been at the big show, like it's stepping back from knowing that power is out there and now I can't touch it anymore. I imagine that has to hurt, or like being a drug addict, right? Coming off your high or whatever. Because they had all that at their fingertips and then they lost it.
Well, the other thing too is it gets down to like if you remember the movie Mean Girls, there was the mean girl, and then there were the two toadies. The two, was it Grover Dill? There were the two Grover Dills. They were the Grover Dills of this movie.
Yeah.
Nancy Downs was Scott Farkas. Bonnie and Rochelle were the Grover Dills.
I will say this about teenage girls too. They are really like that. They are really like that. I was not super popular in high school because I didn't follow anyone. And I didn't want to lead anyone either. I just wanted to do school and leave. But there really were groups like that.
That mirrored Laura Lizzie and her Grover Dills as well. So
one of the things that I did notice is this was the 90s at the height of the, school bully, whatever, everything had that. And I'm watching that and I'm like, I've talked to a lot of people that were in high school. Obviously I was too in that era. And just in general, like that is so hyped up. I don't know anyone who actually had that experience where like the bullies were just randomly beating the shit out of each other and none of the adults were doing anything. And like, I don't know.
I was bullied mercilessly when I was all the way up through high school. And then I got big and I got kind of mean and they didn't bully me anymore. So
I was into all the nerd things you think people would bully you for, but I was also on the wrestling team, so nobody really messed with me. Yeah. Maybe that was why. I don't know.
I was OG nerd, dude. Remember 16 Candles where they're talking about floppy disks?
Yeah. So I don't know. It was weird to see those themes, but it's like I almost expected like some Saved by the Bell special at that point when they started doing some of those scenes, right? Like, okay, now the infomercial starts. But it was very common of every movie kind of set in that era when they would show high school. It was like that.
Because bullying, that's not cool, man.
No.
You want to be cool.
No, okay. It's so sad because I'm the baby here, obviously. I'm class of 2005. So
1984.
My high school career started in my high school career started in 2001. I was in my freshman biology class when 9/11 happened. Like my high school was the end of the 90s, early 2000s, and I'm telling you, it was like that. And unfortunately, if you know anything about the Las Vegas school district, the Clark County School District is we're well known for the fact that nobody really pays attention to the kids until it's just almost to the point of being too late. Like when we're approaching, devastation. In my school specifically, the mean girls, and they were mean. They would spread the nastiest things about people. They got to the point they were beating freshmen in the cafeteria. Nobody was stopping them, to the point that Metro put police officers in our school.
You see, that never
police
happened
officers.
that never happened when I went to school. I mean,
It was
my
wild.
sister, and she graduated in the 70s from high school. My sister had the mean girls in the neighborhood. And of course, you know, she was always excluded, and they would always, you know, they would say things, but never that bad. But there was none of that. And I mean, most of the being a boy, the violence was for outside of school. It rarely happened inside of school. And it never went on unless, you know, you might have been seen as a coward, but it never went on consensually. There were a few times that it was, but I mean, they did come after me more than a few times. I was always able to dodge it, you know, not that I was the fastest guy in the world. But there was, you know, they had to do it sneakily. They couldn't get away with it like they do nowadays, which is, I don't know why that happens, but it wasn't allowed back in our day. So
Well, the other thing is the good thing is when you got home from school, you were home from school. You didn't have social media linking you to everybody, so it's a different experience. What I will say though is first off, before I change the slant, did you have something else you wanted to add, Stabby?
I was just gonna say it gets to the point because I watched those movies like Mean Girls, In the Craft, and you know, Scream and everything else, where they are just a bunch of high school kids without cell phones. You know, we're not over here able to text our parents because, you know, cell phones were expensive at that point. I was almost out of high school when I got my first one, and it was the Ericsson. So it was definitely a thing. But like looking back, it definitely, I think it shaped my generation a little bit different for the simple fact that, like, I don't care that my 20-year high school reunion's coming up. Like, there's so many people, including the Mean Girls, that are still all friends with each other, you know, and they're like, "Oh, Marissa, we miss you so much. Are you coming to the 20-year reunion?" And I'm over here like,
No.
the only words you said to me in high school were "get out of my way." Like, what? Why are you in my DMs right now? Like, why are you messaging me? And I always called her my arch nemesis. Like, she
because
contacted
Paul
me.
has an attendance minimum. That's why.
She messaged me and she's like, "Oh, I'm divorced and I'm stuck. I'm at home with the 3 babies." I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And
Karma.
she's like, I really, you know, I realized I was bad to you back then. I'm like, you told the whole school that I was pregnant and I didn't know which baseball player it belonged to. I'm like, bro.
All right. Well, before this becomes a like PBS documentary on who's the daddy, we're gonna move on. So, the elephant in the room, right? So this school is a Catholic school. There are nuns as some of the teachers.
Yeah.
You see the sisters in the habits. You have 3 girls that are known to be practicing Wiccans by everyone in the school, and yet the nuns never get involved. There was never a prayer circle. The priests never come to talk to them. I call shenanigans.
Nope.
See, I went to public school, so
The nuns would have had something to say. I'm just saying.
I was allowed to say anything I wanted as long as I didn't take the Lord's name in vain. And the only time I got punished for saying any of the crazy, wild, spooky, stabby things that I say is when I called Jesus a zombie.
He's a lich.
I mean,
just saying, I was raised Roman Catholic. I did the Sunday school catechism, all of it. And that is the only point in which I got in trouble for saying any of my crazy witchy stuff was when I said Jesus was a zombie and I got punished.
Okay. I'm just saying
blasphemy.
I would rather get shot a 3rd time than have Sister Mary Catherine, who taught my catechism class. And why are they always Mary Catherine? Can't they come up with new names? Anyway, the Sister Mary Catherine who taught my catechism, I would rather get shot a 3rd time than have that woman mad at me because she was scary. I'm just saying.
With the ruler.
Right? And then to see the nuns there and like you've got these practicing witches and no one says anything. I mean, I call shenanigans. I'm just saying that's the ones I can believe magic that has them flying. I can believe, all the wiki spells, whatever. But the nuns just sitting by and watching witchcraft, no, I'm calling shenanigans. That was a bridge too far for me.
Bullshit, JR. You believe all that, but ghosts aren't real? Check your hypocrisy, bro.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that they did anything in the school. Maybe outside, but I don't remember anything actually being done in the school. And could have, they could have just passed it off. Oh, it's just a rumor.
That's fair.
I can tell you because those nuns were smoking and drinking some sort of alcoholic beverage in between classes and at lunch.
I believe it.
Being a member of a Catholic school for a long time, it's like, as long as it's not on school grounds, I don't have to deal with it. I don't give a shit.
That was fun, baby.
All right, so now let's talk about the magic, because one of the scenes that I thought was probably the most powerful scene in the movie. It's the first time when the Coven of Four summons invokes the spirit, I think they called it.
Yeah.
Invokes the spirit.
And you see all the lightning going, like the one thing that I didn't get is all the animals. So like
beach.
Yeah. So at first you saw the goldfish in a bag, or fish in a bag of water. Okay, that's a water because they're going for the elements. And you see the butterfly, okay, air, but then a bird and then a snake. And I'm like, okay, so were those their personal talismans? Like, what was the significance of the animals? That I kind of.
Snake is ground. Pretty
okay,
sure.
but
they're totems.
Right, but they had two flying animals. So it was a little.
It made sense. I just said what they are.
Right, they're totems. That at least makes sense. But why? Like, I don't know. It was weird what they brought. I noticed thinking, like, trying to figure that one out, placing it all together. But once they call it, like, that scene was like, even though some of the,
you know what? I think I have an idea.
You have two air totems.
The snake. One of them was the snake, which was one of the fears of, I forget what her name is now. Let me bring that
Sarah.
back. Sarah. The butterfly was the hope of beauty for
Nev Campbell.
Yeah, Nev Campbell was it? Bonnie. The fish was Rochelle because she was a high diver.
Okay.
And that leaves the bird, which I mean, the bird is still the fourth man out. Nobody knows what the bird is.
Well, I mean, Sarah.
Nancy wanted freedom. The bird was associated.
Yeah. Okay, freedom.
Yeah, but
she
Nancy
had such a shitty life.
Oh, the snake and the snake. What is it? The one woman said in the shop. The snake is the wisest of all creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the snake is the wise one. And that would have been Sarah.
But Nancy had the snake and Sarah had the bird.
Well, I mean, that's as good. That's my explanation, man.
No, it's a good explanation because you see it in the movie. You see those ideologies kind of switch.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that somebody brought the wrong thing to the picnic and it still worked. It's like, oh my God, she brought macaroni salad and she brought potato salad. I'm like, oh wait, why can't we have both? It all mixes with what we got on here. Man, that's a shitty analogy.
So, but when you saw that scene, like with the lightning calling and it's striking the water, like that was kind of cool the way they did it. And then it the lightning starts striking. Cause remember, everyone else asked for less. I don't know. I think what Nancy asked for was more direct to her as opposed to more like environmental.
Yeah,
so when
she's walking on water.
She wanted to take the Manoa into herself. And so she gets struck by lightning a few times. And I remember like, oh shit, she died when I watched it the first time. Like, obviously I know now, like, after I've watched it the first time, she doesn't, but like, that was a powerful scene. And then you wake up and you've got like 9 dead sharks on the beach and she's running around like a crazy person. They're for me. They're my gifts, and all the people like on the beach watching her.
I think you might have something going on there where Manon, there's a little bit of possession there, using Nancy as a vessel. I think you might actually be onto something there.
Each
presents
and symbolizes rebirth and eternity.
What does?
I sorry, I muted her. My bad. Lo siento.
She said something. Stabby, say it again.
It says each animal is a symbol of rebirth and eternity, and they all lead back to the, oh god, my dyslexia. Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. Okay, that's the snake eating. No, is that the snake eating his tail?
I guess. But it says that they symbolize, each of the four symbolizes rebirth and eternity.
I don't get that one. I like
Yeah,
mine
okay. The
better.
Ouroboros is an ancient symbol of a serpent or dragon eating its own tail, representing the circle of destruction and rebirth. Okay, I was right about what the Ouroboros was. Okay. So like I really liked that scene. I thought it kind of set up the power they had. It showed that the magic was more than just the parlor tricks they were using it for, but the way it was used makes sense if you figure a bunch of high school kids got access to power, like they used it like high school kids, you know.
Mhm.
There's a reason we don't give teenage boys lightsabers, because they're going to poke somebody's eye out. I mean, it's just one of those, you know, realities of life. So I liked it the way they underplayed it when the girls used the power up until the end when it got dark. But then on the other side, you saw the complete raw power when like she's struck by lightning a bunch of times, and then all the dead animals on the beach. And I like that balance of the two in that scene. So Herman, you said that was one of your favorite scenes.
Yeah, it's the part where she's. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say, throwing this out there to all of our listeners, if you do not want your teenage kids to have lightsabers, do not ever send them to my house, because this right here is completely a wall of lightsabers that I will let them play with.
Yeah, they're not real like lasers, so I think they're gonna be okay. So Herman, why was that your favorite scene?
It just was. It just was kind of. It was kind of witchy and spooky, where she's coming back from the ocean, you know, and she's walking on the waves. I hope I'm not killing this for anybody. She's walking on the waves, and you know, she sees those huge sharks on the beach, and it's just like that was kind of witchy and spooky and creepy. Up to that point, it really hadn't been like that, because there's been nothing to really, you know, it was sort of is more drama than anything else.
Yes,
Herman, would you say that was a drastic tonal shift in
Yes,
the film?
that was the shift in the film. And then from that point on, things start going downhill.
but you always, the darkness in Nancy was there the whole time.
Yeah, but
Sure,
now
even-
but that was the catalyst.
I think that's the point where it went from a quirky teenage melodrama to an actual horror film.
Yep.
So Stabby, what you put in the side chat, is that your opinion? So where did you get that? And then I'll read it for everybody. Where'd you find that?
That came off of Zooscope, from the Zooscope group of the craft, directed by Andrew Fleming.
Okay, so fans say that they thought Sarah's magic was natural because she was a natural born witch, because her mother was a witch, whereas Nancy was granted power through sheer will, and probably stealing some of Sarah's power, which we kind of discussed. Like, was Sarah's power what allowed the group to have power, because she was sharing it with her coven? There was definitely some tension with Sarah and Nancy throughout the whole time. On the one hand, you get the impression that Nancy's being nice to her because they need her for the fourth, but on top of that, there was some jealousy because, like, Nancy could do more stuff than she could.
Well, Sarah also had a nice life. Sarah lived in a big house. Sarah had a father that loved her, a stepmother, and of course she had the natural power, whereas the other three did not. So, envy.
Yeah. I mean, the other two had nice, like Bonnie and Rochelle had nice lives in that they were affluent. You have the impression that Bonnie's mother is just a workaholic and no dad in her life. And you don't really see much about Rochelle's parents. I don't think they even like show where she lives.
Yeah. Rochelle was the red shirt.
She was just bored. Rochelle was a bored rich girl.
But you definitely got the vibe of a person of color trying to integrate a mostly white school, and some of the people were mocking her because you saw the mean girl blonde chick like making fun of her quote nappy hair, which having been in high school, like I went to a high school where I was the touch of color. I have trouble imagining in the 90s no one really cared about that stuff, that anyone would really say
Nobody
that.
cared. I can assure you that nobody cared in the 90s. And
The flip side of that, we would have said a lot of things just to offend somebody, even if we didn't care personally.
Yeah, but that was your closest friends. You were just trying to
trolling, I guess.
their day.
The one other thing that Sarah had that Nancy didn't was Chris Hooker.
That's right.
Oh, that's right.
She wanted him too. She always wanted him. And he was now attracted to Sarah Bailey. And
That's
so
right.
that was another thing too. So it was Nancy's envy that sort of drove her over the edge and turned her to the dark side.
Nobody wanted to hook up with Beck and Myers. Like,
yeah.
What?
There were a total of 18 deaths in that movie, and 13 of them were caused by Nancy.
Wow. Serial killer.
So she killed Chris. She killed her stepdad, mom's boyfriend, whatever. She killed, well, we don't know who killed the snake guy in the beginning that warned her, which foreshadowed to the last battle, or if they even did that, because like he just got hit by a car.
Well, they said that there was 18 deaths, not that they were human.
Oh, so that accounts for animals too.
So that's
the
four sharks.
There were 9 sharks I counted. I paused the screen.
8 sharks, 3 snakes.
Who counts that shit?
I did. It was 9. I counted them.
Obviously not the continuity people, because they missed a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of like tertiary deaths going on there with.
Okay.
So she killed 8 sharks, 2 snakes, 1 fish, 1 bird, and then it says that she did kill Ray Sanders, and she did kill Chris Hooker.
Wow.
So Ray was the mom's boy. Like you said, she's quintessential trailer trash. You feel sorry for her. Like even when her mom gets the settlement and she's trying to live the high life, it's like trailer trash in a nice apartment. It was very
Story of my life.
It was very sad to watch like that home life. So she was kind of, Nick. It was kind of like she was set up to fail from the beginning. So you did at some level feel empathy for her. I don't know that I can give Nancy credit for the kills of the 4 talisman animals at the summoning, because I mean she didn't like. How is she more responsible for them than any of the other 3 in the coven? Stabby, we can't hear you. You're both muted.
He was supposed to keep his mic on so you guys could still hear me. It says that she blew them up while the other girls were asleep. She blew up the clownfish, the butterfly, the snake, and the bird.
That is some conjecture because that was not on screen and this is not from a book. So that is fan lore.
That's all I'm telling you is what it says that the director said.
Makes sense.
I'm just telling you.
Okay,
what
if the director said, but the
director lies.
I'm just reading it.
Okay.
Don't shoot the messenger.
You're just the director. I don't care.
If it didn't make the final cut,
review.
it didn't happen. I'm just saying.
Don't blame
I really
messenger.
liked that scene where it started getting progressively darker, and then that was the moment where the light flipped off, and it just went dark. Because like when she's like, I'm, as an adult, you're watching like, oh, they're as a kid, you're watching, oh, they're changing the red light to green. They can just keep going. And that sounded cool. As an adult, you're watching, I'm like, yeah, but that means the other guy's light just suddenly switched and he doesn't have time to brake. And then you see that the third time they did that where the car almost crashes into him. So it's progressively more and more reckless. It's almost like they were getting high on the power. So I don't know.
Who's the vagrant?
I don't know.
Guy running around with the snakes and I got to talk to you. Got to talk to you. Got to talk to you. They basically threw him in as a red shirt, but it's almost like he had a point. There was a point to him being that person. That's the one thing I didn't like about the movie is
they tried to make him a plot device, and
it didn't.
Nobody
work.
caught it.
Yeah,
he came to her. He came to her twice, warning her about the snakes, and then the final battle was with all the snakes. But I don't know. Like you said, it didn't land very well. That part I also noticed.
They needed more.
The stuntman getting hit by the car though was pretty epic.
That was pretty cool.
In the victim list, it says unnamed old man and unnamed snake accidentally ran over by unknown person.
I gave him a name. That snake's name is Carl.
Okay, so the snake man and his snake both died. R.I.P. But yeah, it was
red shirt.
Right.
The other part is they left at the end, like they were moving out of the house to go wherever. Which on the one hand, like clean break, new beginnings, but that also means she's leaving her magical mentor at that magical shop. So I never quite understood why they ended with the leaving. I just kind of felt, I don't know.
Yeah, why did they come there in the first place? Hey, let's fix up this house. Oh, look, we're leaving now.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really make sense to me why they would do that. Like, if he came there for a job, fine, which is what they implied. So why suddenly leave? Because for me, like, part of the cool thing was now she's got this magical mentor and she can learn all the powerful things she can do, right? And then suddenly that's gone. So I don't know. It just that didn't land at the end for me either. Although we lost Stabby. Although the scene at the end where Nancy's in the crazy ward and she's like, I'm flying.
Yeah.
And the nurse was like, what was it she said? Like, sure you are or whatever. Like, she was just humoring the girl as she stabs her with the needle. It was probably Thorazine or whatever to put her out. You have to wonder, like, is that a temporary thing? Is it like she's always going to be that way? Because at a certain point in time, like that level of manic is hard to, like, I don't know, living it forever tied to a bed.
Well, I mean, they'll probably dope her up to the point. I thought that was it forget how to pronounce her name, Fairuza Balk. She did a great job in that.
Oh yeah, she played crazy like a charm, she did it.
But yeah, that ending scene I thought was one of the more memorable scenes. Matter of fact, the more memorable scenes are the ones with her in them.
Yes. Right. She was a good foil for Sarah, the light and the dark.
Exactly.
Remember, they mentioned that there is no good or bad in magic. It's like nature. There's both aspects, and it's about balance, both in yin for yang and within yourself, in theory.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where Nancy's character went wrong. Is she didn't have the balance. She was too heavy on the dark, and so you tilted the scales. Whereas Sarah, she did some dark for vengeance, but she also tried to balance it. Like, I didn't want it to go that far.
I think Nancy's core as where her heart was revenge and any word that correlates with revenge. Yeah, like there was a lot of dark mentality. So I think that's what fits with her. So, like, to have those powers and to be amped up and dialed to 11 to be able to do that kind of stuff, I think that just kind of like set that whole ball in motion. It was already a part of her core as a person. So, like, when she got those powers, it just amplified that, which magic is supposed to do. It's supposed to, it's almost like the super soldier serum with Captain America. It turns bad really bad. It turns good into better.
And all it did is it turned Bonnie and Rochelle into droogies.
Narcissists, yeah. But the one thing that you almost get an impression, though, because like I said, they create Nancy as an empathetic character. Like, you do kind of feel sorry for her for all she's an evil.
You do.
Her face, but like there's implications that maybe mommy's boyfriends have been abusing her in her younger years. We will dance delicately around that topic. It is hinted at. And because remember, the mom tells Ray before the scene where he dies, you're supposed to be her father. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not. And you know, he had tried to grab her gluteus maximus unconsentiously.
Buttocks.
Yeah.
Inappropriately.
Right. So like the implication for those that can, you know, read between the lines were that she didn't have the best childhood and maybe was introduced to things way before she should have been. And that can scar people in ways that she unfortunately experienced to the nth degree.
Let's put it at abusive adjacent, because we don't really know. But we can assume through the little, you know, crackers that they left on the trail there that that's probably what correlates, you know, is that she was abused probably either emotionally, physically, or
and then when she got abused by what's his name, Chris,
but
yeah,
she still wanted him after that
because she's been conditioned to do that. So there's a lot going on with this movie. Like if you do a deep
layers, man. It's like an onion. It's like an onion.
Oh,
man.
dude.
Yeah, but
this
she
is
clearly,
like a
clearly had
wet dream.
Yeah, she clearly had the best character in the entire movie.
Oh,
she had the most
crazy so well.
She had the most range of the four actresses that were in this. Like her range, like I don't know, like Sarah's character was a good character, but the actress played it a little flat.
Yep.
She was a little tonally deaf.
Yeah, I think, which worked as a counterbalance to Nancy. Like you said, they were foils of each other.
It did.
Rochelle and Bonnie did narcissistic well. They did yes men well. They played their part as sort of cheerleaders on the sideline, the Greek chorus, if you were.
Yes.
But I think as far as like diversity and scope and range of ability, like Nancy nailed it out of the park. I think that was what you said. Farouk was her name.
Yeah. No, Firuza.
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen her in a lot of
crazy into the water boy too. Not too long after.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I met people that talk like those Creoles.
Oh no, that's not Creole. That's Coonass. That's a totally different part of Louisiana.
But educating is so angry is because they got all their teeth and no toothbrushes.
Mutula oblongata. This is a totally different movie that we're talking about. But when he gets hit with the baseball and he goes, every time I belly laugh hard, like my ribs hurt, drop to the floor. Don't know how many times I've seen it. When he gets smacked with that baseball, I'm like, oh, it's gonna hurt. And yet I still watch it because it's such a good laugh.
But yeah, she plays crazy very well.
Yeah.
I liked the way they had.
Eyes.
Yeah, I like the way they had the dynamic with the in the coven itself. Like they balanced each other. So you had the
fighting there too.
Well,
like,
yeah, but
from the beginning.
Like so, Bonnie was the one that was shy because of her scars. Rochelle was supposed to be the woman that slept around. Nancy was the crazy who was angry all the time, and then Sarah was supposed to be the white.
Also had a reputation of sleeping around.
Yes, but she was mad because, you know, Chris gave her the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. And she was also in Almost Famous. She was one of the groupies in Almost Famous.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did really well as far as selling that character. I like the way they used magic offensively. And that scene at the end where they're like breaking systematically Sarah down by like faking the death of her parents. With the glamours, they slashed her so she started bleeding again and faked the suicide note because she had a bout of suicide. And they hint, but they don't say that it was her power starting to manifest and she didn't know what was going on, so she didn't process it. Right? Like that's the implication I got because she was talking about seeing the visions of the spiders and the snakes and they, you know, all the meaning. She was seeing the magic.
Yep.
Yes.
And so like I liked all of that. And I remember is Rochelle's character's like, why isn't she fighting us? Why isn't she using magic against us? And Nancy, oh, she's afraid of the magic, which is back to what you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which And then, of course, at the end where she's like sees her mother in that picture in the field, and suddenly you see the background of the field moving. That special effect was very little, but it did a lot.
Yep.
It was
Both
very
times you saw
impactful.
it.
Yeah.
And it happened earlier. Remember when Nancy was looking at the darker book? Was it the Invocation book or whatever? The one that they didn't want her to buy because they didn't think she was ready to handle it. Foreshadowing again, because she wasn't ready to handle it.
Yep.
Until she was.
Well, no, she wasn't, because obviously look how it ended.
No, I still hold on to that statement. She wasn't ready to handle it until she was.
But when she did handle it, she didn't handle it well, is what I'm saying.
Wait,
I don't
are
know.
you talking about Nancy or Sarah?
Nancy. Because Nancy tried
Nancy
to
was definitely not ready to handle that. Sarah was. And I think that's kind of like that's the juxtaposition there when we come to that scene. Like Sarah was ready to handle it, even though she's a reluctant hero in this movie.
That's a standard theme. Like when it comes to power, like never give it to the one that wants it. Like try to find the one that doesn't want it because the one that wants the spotlight, generally speaking, is a sign of narcissism. And not all narcissism.
I hated getting promoted in the army. It's like, hey, you're going to be a sergeant. I'm like, I don't want it. And they're like, yeah, it's going to happen. And I'm like, I don't think I'm the right guy. And then it's like, hey, we're going to make you a staff sergeant. I'm like, same. I don't want it. I don't want it. You know. So, but definitely, you're on point there, JR. With you don't want to give power to the person that craves it or wants it. You know, you definitely want to give to the guys just like, yeah, I don't want to do that because I don't know I can handle it, you know, because that person is going to treat it responsibly. You know, they're going to have that responsible kind of like guardianship of that power. It's like, I mean, I could absolutely abuse it, but I choose not to.
Until they run for office.
Yeah. But no, I really, it was an interesting, it was interesting the way they kind of layered that stuff on there. And I don't know if they were consciously thinking about it. Cause you know, we've all written things where people read meaning and I'm like, sometimes the blue curtain's just a blue curtain, dudes.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't,
you know,
the thing with this movie though, I think it's unintentionally deep. They definitely didn't, they were just trying to make an entertaining film. But it does have a lot of subtext. It has a lot of layers going on in there. And as an adult, you start picking up on that stuff. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. And you start drawing themes from it. You know, even though that wasn't the intent of the creators, the writer, the director, or any of that, you start drawing these themes from like absolute power corrupts absolutely, the reluctant hero. There's a bunch of things going on there. And I haven't seen anything press-wise or anything article-wise from any of the creators that was their intent. So I do like the little accident and what they created, you know.
So it also had the environmental themes because you remember we were, you know, Greenpeace was famously attacking like whaling ships, which whaling ships, go for them. But they were also going like oils. And so, but they had this theme. Remember, Sarah respected the nature because remember she was in harmony with nature. She was kind of. And then you got Nancy who's using it darkly. And then when it manifests in her, like you've got the snakes and the critters and the maggots and the gross factor, this whatever. And you see that kind of the light and the dark, you know, the respecting nature or polluting it, perverting it, whatever. I took some of the natural undertones. And again, like when you know enough about the paranormal the genres, you kind of start seeing themes just because it's in the genre. So maybe we look for it because we expect it to be there. Valid.
Yeah. Well, then you get back to the gifts provided to, you know, after the ritual, that they were all sharks. They were all predators.
Yes.
Maybe that plays into that plays into some foreshadowing as well. Because I never understood. He gives you power, but he also gives you sharks. I mean, what is that? Yeah, what does that mean? And I think it had something to do with the fact that these were predators and powerful and predators, and were not
balancing the scales.
Yeah, well, there was no balance. They're pretty much the top predator in the ocean.
No. because they gave her so much power to make her a dangerous predator, they took others out of the environment to balance nature. Maybe
I don't
maybe
know.
it was just literally
All right,
they just
so
got struck by lightning when it hit the ocean.
that raises the question. So is Nancy worth how many sharks that were sacrificed? You know, she's that. I think it foreshadows how dangerous she is.
Yeah.
And how powerful.
Yeah.
Because a shark, one of the things that sharks do is they won't actually go in for their prey. They'll circle their prey for a while before being satisfied, and then they will go in for the kill. And that's kind of what happened with Nancy. Is she sort of circled Sarah and then went right in.
Yeah.
So,
Found her
I mean,
weak
it's part of
points
her
and
nature.
then
Yeah.
and then went in like a predator does, like we see it in wolves, coyotes, all other kinds of apex predators. You know, they'll wear their prey down, and we saw that in the film.
Yeah.
You know, when
but you also kind of got
the
you got the baby predator vibes from Rochelle and maybe phrasing on that one. But you've got with Rochelle and Bonnie, because like when they come to apologize and she's like, yeah, kind of, we're sorry about that. And she's like, yeah, you almost tried to kill me. She's like, yeah, that, like, they just kind of shrug off that we tried to murder you.
Yeah.
Well, now that we're using the shark analogy, it reminds me of the two fish that like to hang around great whites to get fed.
Remoras, yeah. The ones that
they're not predators in themselves, by nature. They just hang around the predators so they can get meat. So they can
it's
get
a little
food.
homicide between friends.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
It also plays back to that ritual when they join the coven. It's better to you rush on this blade than whatever.
Yep. Right.
I mean, it's. I do think it shows that there's power behind pledges. There's power behind giving your word to something. At least as far as like magic is concerned, like there's no take backs.
Well, that always sort of better that I fall upon this blade than to betray my sister. Almost sounds a little bit like the La Cosa Nostra. When mafia associates are made, they have to make a vow and may I burn in hell like this card if I ever betray the family, et cetera, et cetera. Sounds a lot like that.
It does.
Yeah, it's pretty typical theme, death before dishonor.
Yeah.
Kind of vibe. But like the fact that you've got a knife to your throat when you make the pledge, and then they tried to kill her when she wanted to leave because they were getting too crazy for her. I thought that was like that callback. Like I didn't get the impression any scenes in this movie were not thought out intentionally. Like it didn't feel like any of it was fluff. Sometimes movies are like, okay, this is the B-roll to fill the length so it's long enough. I didn't feel like this movie had any of that.
In fact, there's some stuff that probably could have been added, like the guy in the beginning with the snake.
Yeah.
There could have been a little bit more context there. Yeah. But overall, I don't think there was no fluff points in the film. Like everything seemed like it was by design.
It was tight
to carry the film.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know. For me, like the paranormal type stuff, like the genre, it's never really been my thing. But lately, I've been reading some of it, and I'm just, it's kind of cool. And it's kind of neat to see some of that the similarities in all of the base underlying tropes and all of these in the genre, which obviously is what makes them fit into the genre, and then the other places where it's different. As you notice, all of the magic users in this were female. There were no guys with power.
Yep, exactly.
Very female centric, yeah.
In some worlds or some lore, the men can't use the magic. Like, I mean, I think Robert Jordan did it in The Wheel of Time. I mean, it's not uncommon.
Well, I mean, it also goes back to like the Puritan. Although men could be seen as witches, the people who primarily were targeted were women.
Yeah.
So, and I think that goes back to more along the lines of the folklore of it all, that it had to all be women. Although modern Wicca doesn't allow for that, I don't think. I don't think it's only women, but there's
No,
there's
they
other
love
things,
both genders.
because they have the power of creation, this, that, and the other. So I think that kind of was the focus of it. My
Yeah.
opinion.
So overall, Herman, what'd you think of the movie?
I
Good,
thought it was
bad,
pretty good. I kind of like my stuff more scary, but like you said, it was a good film, well acted. It was very well written. It had a good story. There was, I mean, like I said, you guys caught a lot of stuff I never saw, and I think by and large, it in the fact that it is a cult movie now, I think by and large it was. I think it was a good movie, and it was a success on its own.
Yeah, I will have to check out the Craft Legacy and see. Overall, I really liked it. This was more my flavor than Practical Magic. I mean, they both were light on the magic, more on the urban, the background story of the interpersonal between the women. But this one, it was more action oriented, whereas the other one was more interpersonal. So for me, like, this was more my flavor as far as the paranormal goes. I mean, it's still, sure, it had the romance, but mostly in that they magicked him to like it kind of thing. So I did enjoy it. I'm curious to see what we're going to review next when it comes to these kinds of movies. I know in season 5, Stabby and I, because Nick's kind of working, doing his, chasing the drug dealers down kind of thing. So Stabby and I have been plotting what we are going to do interview topics, and we've got a master list. And I know she had mentioned that she wants us to do more movie and book reviews for 2025. So we've got room to get some topics. And the great thing about movie reviews, unless it's like in theaters now, they're kind of timeless. So if we get a glut of episodes, we can hold those without like hurting anybody's, I want to advertise my book stuff, right? Like get the word out. But we definitely plan on doing more movie reviews in 2025. So stay tuned for those people.
Yeah, if you want to do a movie review, especially in this season, The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
It's a great movie.
That is a fantastic,
one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
great actors. You had Emil.
Underrated gem, great movie.
That's a show in itself. There's so much going on with that movie. I love it so much. You get I'm not going to spoil for anybody. It's still fairly recent. It came out during the pandemic. Me and Stebby love this movie. We watch it several times throughout the year. When we can't decide on anything on streaming, we're like, oh, well, Autopsy of Jane Doe. She's like, all right, why is it not on right now? I'm like, hold on. Great movie. Great actors.
Great Halloween movie.
Oh, yes. It's a phenomenal. That's definitely top 10 during spooky season. Is that one? It's so good.
Nick, you know what else we've got coming up?
Indigestion, because I had taquitos earlier.
Well, that too, but probably around January, February, we're going to hit our vaunted 500th episode. That's like a huge milestone.
Oh my Lord, 500,000. There's probably a Greek word for that. I don't know what it is right now. But.
Insanity. That's what we're going to call it. But so,
okay.
I'm thinking for that one, because we should end the season around 490 at Christmas. We might do some extras because we like the people that do their Kickstarters come here and they want to talk to us and talk to our audience. It's kind of fun. But those are so timely that they are always basically bonus episodes unless they plan well in advance. They
always hurt my bank account because they end up buying their stuff.
I still haven't recovered from the $500 we spent on that Game Found one for the space battle.
We're getting that soon. That should be coming soon.
But you know what? We actually promised we'd have the guy back for that one, and we would play the game on an episode. We got to figure out how to interface all that.
I believe that you said you would kick my ass in it, and I
do believe we determined that a bet would be made before the game. I don't remember what the terms were, but we'll have to go back and watch that episode and figure it out.
I think we were going to donate to each other's favorite charities.
Sure, I'm sure it was something more embarrassing, but we got to keep it family friendly. So we're
blur option here, so I'm not playing naked. That's not happening.
Yeah. Anyway, I paid for college as a reverse stripper. Did you know that? I started off naked and they paid me to put my clothes back on.
Hey, whatever
God,
works,
that's
man.
genius. I should have done that.
Better than selling
Anyway.
blood.
Right. All right. So overall, I really liked it. We've got a lot coming up in the coming season. We'll do more movie reviews. I mentioned that to tell you, dear listener, if there's anything cult classics, because those are, I think, more fun. We don't have to be as sensitive to spoilers when the movie's a decade or more older. Like, come on, you've had your time. So if you've got anything that was
coming up, are we doing Dark Star movie review?
I don't know what that is, so no.
It's It's one of John Carpenter's first movies when he was in college. Yeah, it's they classified it as a horror comedy. I didn't see the comedy.
We've talked about it, but we haven't scheduled it. So yeah, I know what you're talking about now. But yeah, so if there's any kind of classic movie that you remember that is speculative fiction that has a special place in your heart, tell us, and we'll make that as one of our episodes. The only thing we request is I don't have to fly to Timbuktu to get the only VHS copy alive and try to find I've got to be able to find it for us to watch it. But other than that,
you don't have to do that, JR, because I always know a guy.
Yeah, that ought to be a superpower. I know a guy.
Or you can find it on Tubi.
Or Tubi,
ironically, I ended
Tubi's
up
replacing my guy
now.
I had to pay $5 to rent this from Amazon so we could do this episode, so I could watch it for this episode. But wouldn't you know, on November 1st, Tubi will have it for free.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, isn't that the way it goes? Ain't that a
right? But so as long as it's a movie we could access, or you could provide us a way to find it, and if you suggest it and you want to come on the show and be with us, you don't have to be an author. Not all of our guests are creatives. Sometimes they're just friends of friends, fans, whatever. So if you want to come on and join us, dear listener, do that too. It's a lot of fun. With that, Herman, what are you writing right now?
Right now, two things. Right now, I am finishing up the second book. The books that I have is a 2-book series called The Revenant and the Cult. It's a fantasy. It's Christian-esque. That's the term I use. Fantasy horror type of genre. And this is about a holy warrior with a flaming sword who goes looking for a missing spy in the region. The first book is him hunting the missing spy, and then the second book is them going to what is essentially a haunted and plagued forest. And so I'm finishing up with edits on that book right now, and I'm going to start the audiobook production in November, and I'm hoping to have the book out early March of next year. And then the book after that is going to revisit a character, my second book, called Odo. And this is going to be kind of like a Viking themed story with Lovecraftian influences. And they all occur in my fantasy world. All these characters are the stories are told in this same fantasy world that I have yet to name yet because I'm bad at marketing, but whatever. So,
and we will link to that the book, The Revenant and the Cult, in the show notes. I'll throw it in with his contact information. Obviously, his contact information will be in the show notes. But where are you most active if they want to engage with you, Herman?
If you don't want to be offended by me, go to Facebook. If you don't mind being offended by me, go to Twitter.
It'll always be Twitter to us, Elon Musk. It'll never be X.
Yes, X.
Because just saying X sounds weird.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like it sounds like a
pornographic almost
70s B movie. X,
absolutely.
And actually, there was a movie called X, the alien, or X, the extraterrestrial, something like that.
Oh, you know what I realized, Nick? We're bad affiliate sponsors because we forgot to ask him if he drinks coffee or tea and how he takes it in the fall.
Coffee.
That's part of the quasi-religion. See, there he is. He answered it.
Coffee.
All right.
Coffee.
So
no tea. Tea does not go well with cigars. Coffee.
No, it does not.
Bourbon goes great with cigars. Huge.
So if you want to help the show, speaking of coffee, obviously we affiliate market with Coffee Brand Coffee. Link is in the show notes. Code is podcast Grunts. It gets you 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. We're not hiding. When you shop from them, you're helping us. So if you want to support the show and help keep this up, because starting in season 5, so starting in January, the price of StreamYards goes up by multiples of 5. We went from $100 to $500.
I just dropped $100 at Coffee Brand Coffee. like during the podcast. I was like, oh wait, I haven't restocked, so I got the ones that look great.
And so there might be a little bit of a lag on season 5 because we're also going to be starting next month looking for alternatives to StreamYards as well. Because $500 for the base model is kind of steep since most podcasts don't make any money.
Oof.
So they got really popular because they were good, and then they thought, well, now we can like milk them dry.
That's how they get you.
Podcast, they said. Be famous, they said. Make lots of money, they said.
Yeah, I don't know who they are, but they were wrong. They lied.
Liars.
They were lies. So much lies.
All right. You can find us, dear listeners, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the bits, shoots, the rumbles, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We have our email at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, Blasters and Blades podcast at gmail.com for professional purposes only. Keep the insanity over at Madam Stabby Stabs, Instagram, Twitter, and the email. Links are in the link tree. You can click it, send her the hate mail. She will get snarky in response. You have been warned. You can also find us on our Facebook page and Facebook group, or you can find us on our Spotify website. Bunch of gobbledygook. Just click the link tree. Promise you it's a lot easier. But when you go to that link tree and you click the Spotify link, when you get there, you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on, and you can help feed a starving little Nick Garber over there in California, where, you know, a grain of rice costs $1 million.
Just want to say one thing here. You can get all my audiobooks on Spotify as well.
Nice. We'll get to you. Get the link for your Spotify. We'll throw that in your contacts as well, and we'll throw that up there. We link to everyone's Amazon, but if there are places they can link elsewhere, we like to encourage diversity of buying platforms. Everyone wins. Or you can support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment sections for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until they float away on a river of Java, but they will never float away in the end. They will drink it all because they're not quitters. No quitters, are you, Nick? There's no quit in Garber.
No, sir. No, there ain't no quit. Ain't no quit. Can't quit, won't quit.
That's right. All right. And with that, shenanigans are over. Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge in a love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And for a couple more episodes, all things spooktastic. And with that, we're going to end it. Thanks for coming on, Herman. This was a lot of fun.
No problem.
We've got to add you to a list we will make for spooky time friends, so that way we know who to invite back. And with that, I'm going to hit the end button before we say something we shouldn't. Wait for it.